So everyone, I want you to introduce you to Eric Vale. Eric, this is the Century 21 Metro West crew.
Awesome.
And
Hi, Eric.
Hi. What's my frame?
we got about an hour and a half, probably.
No, I mean my.
Oh,
Video frame.
oh, yeah, I can move it around. You
I'm from LA, man.
you
He's a
can,
pro. He's a pro.
you can dance around. I'll follow you.
We doing a medium shot. We doing a full.
We're doing full
Fade.
1080p.
Fade to black. Cutaway. That's LA terms. We didn't know those.
And
My frame.
Gotta put like the tape
Yes.
on the ground.
Yeah.
no, I'm good.
Where's my mark?
Yeah, where's my Mac? Where's my Mac?
I'm Mark.
Eric, Brad just got done filming HGTV, House Hunters.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he's a movie star too.
Like reported it on your DVR? Or were you in it?
Yeah.
Oh,
It hasn't been,
cool.
it hasn't been
Holy
edited
cow,
yet.
this is low.
Haven't edited it.
Yeah, it does.
can move it up
We
high.
lift them up,
Editing
yeah.
now.
You want,
That's awesome. What's that?
hey,
Oh, there we go.
Now, are they gonna send you like an unedited version? And we're gonna watch it here?
I don't think I'll see it until it goes on TV.
Oh, really?
No, I have no editorial privilege.
We could have like a special showing or
A watch
something.
party.
Yeah, a watch party.
Really don't like the way these outlets look, huh?
Yeah,
Everyone's hidden.
they're all hiding. It just seemed like a good place to put round things on top of round things, I think.
There you go. We ready to roll?
Yes.
Awesome. So, yeah, my name's Eric Vale. Give you guys an idea who I am, what I do. I don't live here in Massachusetts. Massachusetts. Did I say that weird? I
you
say all
said
the
it
towns
perfect, yeah.
weird. Peabody. Woburn. I don't know. Yeah, Woburn.
No,
It's
say
Woburn.
Worcester. Say Worcester.
What?
Worcester.
It's not Worcester.
Whisker.
Leo Minster, that's another
And to
one.
think they laughed at me because I called Fall River Falls River. Thought that was pretty
Sounds
hard.
better.
I thought it was harmless. Well, it's more than one fall, I guess, yeah. So, yeah, my name's Eric Vale. I don't live in Massachusetts. I'm with the Color Road Warrior. I live and work in a different city every 3 to 4 months. I've been doing this since 2003. True life on the road. Name the city. I've probably been there, worked there, done it. Since 2003, I've lived and worked 3 or 4 months at a time, doing sales seminars in Denver, New York, Atlanta, Chicago, San Francisco, Philadelphia, New Orleans, Houston, Phoenix, Los Angeles, San Jose, Sacramento, Washington, D.C., Dallas, Texas, Charlotte, North Carolina, Kansas City, Tampa, Boston, Seattle, Portland, Atlanta, Cleveland, Fresno, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Honolulu, Las Vegas, Toronto, Austin, Texas, and about 20 other cities. Does that sound like fun, anybody? I've been to Johnny Cash's grave in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Yeah, I've been everywhere. I get to cities, I just soak it up. I see everything there is to see and do, and I love it, man. It's fun. First 3 years of that, I was Tony Robbins' top national speaker. If anybody's familiar with Tony, I see you got to Awaken the Giant Within there on audio over there. But yeah, when I was with Tony, we were training very successful people on how to be more successful. Marty Rodriguez, Century 21 down in Glendora, California, sells about a home and a half a day. She was at about every Tony Robbins seminar we did in Southern California. We were training actors, Hugh Jackman, athletes, Serena Williams. We were training business icons, just how to play at a higher level. You know, the fascinating thing I learned working with Tony is that the people who don't need training usually show up at the trainings. The ones who need them the most never anywhere to be found. After working with Tony, I formed my own company promoting some of the top authors, sales speakers, sales experts out there. I've worked directly with Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, Jim Rohn, John Maxwell, Grant Cardone. Really the best of the best to teach people how to sell more and make more money. Anybody here like making money? Awesome. When I was, my first sales job ever, my sales career started in my early 20s. I didn't know what I wanted to do for a living. I wound up getting a job selling BMWs in Beverly Hills, California. I did that for 4 years, selling cars with the stars, had clients like Will Smith, Wayne Gretzky, Tom Cruise, Tom Selleck. I was making a nice 6-figure income doing that in my early 20s. Not saying that impress you, but impress upon you. Didn't start off that easily. My first month, I only made 2 sales, made $200 in commission for the entire month. There was no salary, no draw. It was $200 that I walked away with, and that was before taxes, which leaves you with about $8 in California. And then my sales manager came up to me and he said, "Son, there's something I did not realize when I hired you." I said, "What's that?" He said, "You have no idea what you're doing." I said, "Yeah, you got to understand, man. We're in a bad location. The other dealerships advertise better. They lowball us on the pricing. We got way too many salespeople here. The floor's flooded. The weather's been bad. What else?" He said, "Man, I'm impressed. You figured out how to not make money. You know, how you figured. I'm impressed. You know how bad this place is after being here for only a month." He said, "How'd you figure it out?" Thought about that for a sec. He said, "Well, I guess that's what all the other sales guys have been telling me." He said, "As I've been watching you," he said, "it's interesting who you've chosen to be your mentors in this place. We have 15 salespeople. I see you've gravitated to 2 or 3 of the more interesting ones." He said, "Follow me." Took me in our conference room. We had a big leaderboard on the wall. I could see at a golf tournament, and all of our names are printed out on these magnetic printouts and put on the wall in order of production. He said, "Find your name." Being the optimist that I am, I started at the top, working my way all the way down to the bottom. There, leaning against the baseboards, he just kind of threw my name and numbers on the bottom of the wall. He said, "How's that look?" I said, "That's embarrassing." I said, "Come on, man, you couldn't put him in that wall with everybody else." He said, 2 sales isn't going to get you on that wall. He said, "I brought you up here to show you something." He said, "Your buddies this first month telling you how bad this place is, how can't make any money." He said, "They're right above you." He said, "If you lie down with dogs, you're going to come up with fleas." He said, "Why listen to people making 2-3 grand a month telling you how to make money?" He said, "People at the top of that board are making 200-300 grand a year." He said, "Every month you walk in here, I can guarantee you the same names are going to be right there at the top, same ones are going to be at the bottom." He said, "The non-producers don't produce, the producers produce, and the people in the middle just kind of get by, spend a lifetime getting by." He said, 3 things separate the bottom of that board from the top. The first thing is attitude. I'm not a motivational speaker. I don't go across the world telling people to wake up every morning, stare at the mirror and say, 'I like myself, I like myself, I like myself.' You know, skipping everywhere. You know, a positive attitude is nice. When I talk about attitude, it's what are you focusing on, the opportunities or the problems. I just don't train real estate, but about 80% of my clients are realtors. The last event I did in New York City, we had 650 people in the room and 480 of them were real estate. I've been in the #1 office in the world several times. Whenever I do an event in New York City, they have me out. It's a Douglas Elliman office based out of the Chelsea area of Manhattan. If anybody ever watches the show The Millionaire Listing with an agent named Frederick, that's the office Frederick Elkland operates out of. You have to have a $250,000 GCI to even be allowed to put your paper bag in the refrigerator there. But, you know, I've worked with some of the top individuals in offices from coast to coast, and one thing I've learned is, you know, about attitude in business occurred in the real estate industry around 2008. Anybody remember that time period? Pretty unique time in the economy and the real estate market. And one thing I found fascinating during that time was all the poor people out there were crying because their house was worth half what it used to be worth, and all the rich people were running around high-fiving each other going, "Holy cow, all the real estate's half off." You know, same situation, different attitude about it. I was working with agents and the loan originators in the mortgage industry who were doubling and tripling their production in 2008 over what they'd done the previous years. I said, "How the heck you doing it?" I see everybody else closing their doors and struggling. They said 2/3 of the agents just left the business. There's a bigger market share, less competition. I thought, what a unique thing to focus on when everybody else is focusing on the scarcity. You guys are seeing the abundance and the opportunities. If you're looking for reasons you can't get listings, you'll find them. And if you're looking for ways you can, you'll find those too. You know, what you seek, you seek and you shall find. What you focus on is kind of what you get. Second thing, he said, in addition to having the right attitude, you got to do the work. You can't just sit around the office all day talking to your coworkers. They're literally the only people in this world who want to buy what you're selling. He said, if you're not in front of a client, you got to be on the phone, knocking on doors, doing whatever you can to get in front of a client. You do part-time work, you're going to get part-time pay. My grandfather was a farmer in Colorado, and I learned at a young age there's no sick days in farming. If you're not out there planting the seeds every single day, there's going to be no harvest, and sales works the same way too. Third thing is this, he said, you don't know how to sell. He said, interesting career choice. We don't pay you for test drives. We only pay if they take the things home. He said, if you know your product, know how to talk about it, but don't know how to sell it, that leads to a career in what's called unpaid consulting. Anybody ever felt like an unpaid consultant? That's
Yes.
Being great at talking about real estate, not great at selling it. I've been across this continent since 2003, training sales professionals in about every industry you can imagine. And I can tell you this, most people who have a career in sales don't know how to sell. They know how to present, and there's a big difference between those two. I didn't know how to sell. I made $200. My sales manager said, "You better figure out how to sell." I said, "Well, aren't you going to train me? Don't you guys do that here?" He said, "I'm not a sales trainer. I'm a sales manager. That's a totally different skill set. Sales management's a totally different skill set than being a salesperson." He said, "You got to go find a sales trainer, like George Clason wrote in the book, Richest Man in Babylon. You want to learn about jewels, you go to a jeweler. You want to learn about sheep, you go to a shepherd, but you don't mix the two up." He said, "You got to go find yourself a sales trainer." I said, "Any suggestions where I should start?" He handed me a book that's on your shelf over there called How to Master the Art of Selling by Tom Hopkins. I did something unique with that book. I read it. I read the thing cover to cover twice. I came back the next month. I sold 24 BMWs and made $8,600. I went from $200 in income to $8,600 in income in 30 days after reading one book on sales. And I was so excited with that money. I ran down to Barnes & Noble, threw my money on the counter, said, "You guys just sold me a $20 book, made me $8,600. What else you got?" I got my hands on everything I could find. Those books over there, man, that's nothing. My library takes up that entire wall. I mean, I've read Napoleon Hill, Lorman's Appeal. I mean, I didn't just read them to get through them. I read them to get from them. I've studied the things. I mean, I don't think you've read a book unless it's highlighted and written in. And, people all the time, all over the country, show me their library, and I pull off a book and crack it. Things never even been read. I studied Napoleon Hill's Laws of Success, 4 volumes, that freaking thing. I've, studied Napoleon Hill, Norman Vincent Peale, Dale Carnegie, Og Mandino, Wallace Wattles, George Clason, James Allen. Read all the sales books out there, Ziegler, Hopkins, Tracy, who else? Jeffrey Gitmer. Read books on negotiation, Roger Dawson, a new book Chris Voss put out, Never Split the Difference. I've read all these things, but next month I earned 11 grand, next month 13 grand, my 4th month I earned $15,700 doing something I didn't know how to do a few months earlier. I became a believer in sales training because this is a competitive industry. You're competing against other people, and really your skill sets are going to determine your income. It doesn't start with motivation. I promoted a lot of motivational speakers out there. And people go to the seminar, they jump up and down, they get excited, then they go back to work, but they're left with they show up with the same skill sets that they had before. And motivational only lasts so long. I believe, success in sales starts with skills. Because when you're good, you'll have self-confidence. If you have self-confidence and you're good, you're going to do the activity. You won't have the fear to pick up the phone, to knock on the door. You'll say, "You know what, I can produce. I can do this." And if you're out there doing the work and you're good, you're going to produce. And when that money starts coming in, that's when real motivation shows up. That's when you're like, "I can make a real nice lifestyle out of this thing." My first month of sales, I earned $200. I was late every morning, took long lunches, left early every night, could care less if they fired me. After learning how to sell, you couldn't keep me away from the place. I couldn't wait to go to work. I knew I showed up, I was going to make money. I'd show up, my colleagues are like, "Thought you were off today. I thought this was your day off." I said, "I'm scheduled off today, but there's nothing I'd rather be doing. What am I going to do today? Go to the mall? Walk around Bed Bath & Beyond, Yankee Candle?" I said, "Dude, I'm going to go see a movie. Do that at night, man. Like I said, I got to make money today." Mark Twain wrote, "Make your vocation your vacation. Love what you do." Drives me crazy when people say, "I got to go to work." I said, "Then find something else to do." It shouldn't be a got to, it's a get to. And you guys are in a sexy industry. I mean, real estate. You want to make some money in a sexy fashion. This is real estate. That's how you really acquire wealth. So the stuff I'm talking about this morning is just what separates the top producers from everybody else in your industry. Most businesses are governed by what's called the Pareto principle. An Italian economist over a century ago learned that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by only 20% of the people. It became a well-known economic principle known as the 80-20 rule. 20% of the sales force in about every industry out there makes 80% of the money. And conversely, 80% of the people only make 20% to make the leftover. I just trained some of the biggest auto dealerships in the world outside Detroit. I walk into any of those dealerships, 20% of the sales force, making 80% of the money. I train about every industry you can imagine, and say it's pretty consistent until you get to real estate. Then they say it's not really 80-20. They say it's more like 94-6. 6% of agents are making 94% of the money. So what are these agents doing differently? Some of these top 6%ers that I've worked with across this planet, millionaire real estate agent Gary Keller wrote another book on that shelf. I've worked with about a half dozen of the guys in that back of that book. They're not Keller agents. They're from various offices. I work with Joe Rothschild's Remax office in Katy, Texas, outside Houston. And the stuff I'm going to talk about today is what gets you in the back of that book, what the top 6% do differently. The starting point of it all is having what I call a vision. You got to have a vision for your business. You got to know what you're looking to create. Harvard Business School says number one reason for failure in business is lack of a plan. If you have no vision, you have no plan. If you have no plan, you're winging it. And what do you think 94% of the people in real estate are doing? Just kind of showing it up, trying to figure it out on the fly. In fact, I asked most agents, what date of the year do you write out your financial goals for the next year? What date do you think the 94% say? January 1st, and they forget about it by when?
January 2nd.
Right? That same question every day, give the same answer. One of the top offices in this country, in New York City, they fly me in every September 30th, 7 years running now, to speak at their New Year's Eve party. Their New Year's Eve party's on September 30th. They rent out a big banquet hall, hang Happy New Year's banners, dress for the occasion, count down to midnight, pop champagne to celebrate, because it's really the activity we do in October, November, December. We start getting paid on January, February, March. And that's a unique time of year where people start shutting down for the year when it comes to holiday season. We work less, we kind of just relax, rewind, kind of wait till January 1st to get started. If you're waiting till January 1st to get started on your 2020 business, you're probably going to find yourself in March, April, May of 2020 still getting ready to get ready for 2020. So the first thing that I do at the all-day events I put on is teach people how to create a business plan. It's just not about writing out goals or throwing a vision board on a wall somewhere. And not that I'm not knocking any of that stuff, but what I'm saying is there's a system, there's a psychology to creating a business plan. And that's the first thing that I teach at the all-day events I put on across this country is how to create a business plan. And we do an exercise at the events that I put on to show that if you have a plan going into the exercise, you're anywhere from 2 to 4 times more productive than trying to figure out how to get through the exercise, just figuring it out on the fly. And it's a great metaphor for real life, the working world. Second thing I tap into is really the psychology of success. It's the Tony Robbins stuff. Why is Hugh Jackman going to Tony Robbins to find out how to be a better actor? Tony's never been through, Lee Strasberg's acting academy. Tony doesn't know how to act. If you saw Shallow Hal, you'd probably agree. But Tony knows how to get people to be a better version of themselves, how to change their belief systems. You'll never earn $500,000 a year selling real estate if you have a $100,000 a year self-concept. If you have $100,000 a year self-concept, you'll never only earn 50. We produce at a level that is consistent with that. Psychologists call it a self-concept. We all have an idea of what we should look like physically, what our weight should be like, our physical shape, our relationships, our careers, and our money. We'll do whatever we can to either accelerate or sabotage our results to keep them consistent with that self-concept. It runs our mind much like a thermostat regulates temperature of a room. Room temperature starts getting too warm, thermostat recognizes that, kicks in the air conditioning, brings it down to a level where we feel comfortable. Then when the habit cooling off gets below the comfort level, thermostat also recognizes that, shuts off the air conditioning, brings it up to where we feel comfortable, keeps us in our comfort zones. We all have comfort zones. We all have financial comfort zones. If you pull up your bank statement right now today, however much money you have in your world right now at this very moment is to the penny where you feel comfortable financially, and it's where you think you should be. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. I usually lose 99% of the room right there. So here's the theory. So it works like this. Let's say you're always used to having, $5,000 in your bank account. You always had that $5,000 in there. Then 1 month you go out, you have a nice month, you close some deals, you get that commission in, you get that $5,000 up to like $20,000. What do we do with the extra money?
Spend it.
You get it back down to
5,000
where we feel comfortable. It's called compensatory behaviors. We compensate for that excess by getting rid of it. Our self-concept doesn't all of a sudden change from a $5,000 person to a $20,000 person. We remain a $5,000 person with a heck of a lot of spending money. Now we go out there, we have some fun. We update the wardrobe, the cars, the electronics. You have a perfectly good phone, but the new phone comes out. You got to get the new phone. You take vacations, nicer dinners, buying gifts for our loved ones, do whatever we can to get rid of the money, get all the way back down to 5,000 where we feel comfortable and we stop. Here's the important part. We've been out there partying and playing and spending. What have we not been doing?
Working.
We haven't been doing the work. Because when you have, that extra, subconsciously, that's exactly what it is. It's extra. It's more than enough. There's no longer a sense of urgency to produce. So a few months goes by, partying and playing and spending and not working, 20 grand gets back down to 5 pretty fast. We got nothing in the pipeline, bills coming in, gets down to 4 grand, 3 grand, 2 grand. We weren't comfortable with the extra, we're certainly not comfortable with less. Now we go into panic mode, engage what they call scrambling behaviors. We increase our activity, knock on more doors, make more calls, do whatever we can to make enough sales, get it back up to 5,000 where we feel comfortable, and we stop. Anybody know anybody like this? Maybe intimately. This is what a British economist coined the term Parkinson's law. It says expenses rise to meet income. Just because you make more doesn't mean you're worth more, because we tend to spend more. So if you're broke right now, where are you eating lunch? Home. McDonald's, Taco Bell, Arby's, Wendy's. Then you make a sale, you step it up big time. What? Chili's, Applebee's. Then we have a huge month. We're the top steakhouse in town. You know, we're going downtown that night. I mean, that's the way most people operate. I only talk about this stuff because I've been giving talks to, you know, salespeople, and especially realtors, about every day since 2003, and one thing I can tell you is most people are broke. It's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep. I get checks bounced all the time for a few $100. My first talk ever was to RE/MAX office in Denver, Colorado, where RE/MAX is headquartered. And I was working with Tony Robbins at the time, and I got my schedule. They said, be at this office, speak to this RE/MAX group. And I'm driving through the parking lot, I see a Mercedes, a Lexus, another Mercedes, a BMW. I'm thinking, why the heck they asked me to speak to these people? They don't need this talk. They got this stuff figured out. Look at these cars. I was 29 years old. I was, intimidated. I'm there speaking to people in their 40s and 50s who are apparently rich, and I got to tell them how to be successful. They're going to be looking down at me, ignoring me. Man, my knees are knocking. I gave a 1-hour talk. Afterwards, about eight of them invested about $500 a piece for the cheap seats at Tony's seminar, and I was all excited. I took their forms, I faxed them into our corporate office in San Diego. The woman there, Angie, she called me up, said, great job, Eric. Your first talk ever. You got 8 people to invest in themselves. I said, thank you. She said, the only challenge is all their credit cards declined. I said, what was that? She said, every single one, 0 for 8. I was like, wow. Wow. And I see that happen all the time. Sometimes people I know are earning a 6-figure income. You know, but what happens is you make that 100 grand, you go out and you buy an $80,000 car, a $5,000 watch, you spend a week down in the Bahamas. I mean, it's just expenses rise to meet income. I'm not exempt from this. I mean, you know, I went to the same schools we did. I mean, growing up in this country, they're going to tell you how to dissect a frog, climb a gym rope, memorize state capitals, but you're not getting one class on money. Zig Ziglar said money's not everything, but it's right up there with oxygen. It's pretty important stuff. My first 3 months at BMW, after learning how to sell, I was crushing it. Caught the attention of my owner. He owned about a dozen dealerships, and he found out I was doing well. He came over and introduced himself. He said, kid, here you're a superstar. I said, well, I'm trying my best, trying to figure it out. He said, how much money you make that last 3 months? I said, about $50,000. He said, how much you got left? I said, about $250. He said, where'd all your money go? I said, that's a phenomenal question. If you find it, let me know. I said, let me think about this. I got a brand new car. I got a condo in Calabasas. That's where Kardashians and everybody live now. Had to pay first month, last month, security deposit. Got a 68-inch big screen Sony TV because I couldn't find a bigger one. That's a $400 shade, some Bruno Mali shoes. I was in Vegas last weekend, Mexico weekend before that. I said, my money's gone. He said, if you don't have a plan for what you can do with your money before you get it, after you get it, you're going to waste it, and it will kill your sales career. He told me something I'll never forget. He said, selling out of desperation is a tough place to sell from. If you're stressed out about your bills, and you got to go out there and sell people, man, talk them into investing tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in your product. They will feel the fear, smell the desperation. Then we do everything wrong in the sales process. We cut commission, we stop chasing the deals we really want to just get some small thing out the door to get a few bucks in our bank account. He said, you gotta be in control of your money. And I believe just about, it's as important as any other skill set in business. As important as handling objections, negotiation, closing deals is to be in control of your money. Because you're self-confident. If it's low, man, it's gonna affect your entire overall approach. And there's nothing more difficult than going out there and trying to close someone because you have to. because then the focus becomes on us and not on our clients. Guy gave me this advice. He passed away in 2011 with $1.9 billion. He was on the Forbes list. His name was John Anderson. He donated the business management school to UCLA. I did 2 seminars in Hawaii a few years back. I was driving through downtown Honolulu, saw a skyscraper, the Red Topa at the top. That was his insurance company. Like anybody with any kind of wealth, he has multiple streams of income. What else? He owned half the auto mall in Thousand Oaks, California. He owned Mercedes, Lexus, Cadillac, Subaru, Saab, Mazda, Nissan, Honda, and Oldsmobile, and he drove a Mazda 626. He was worth $888 million driving a Mazda 626. And I asked him one day, I said, I gotta ask, man, you're on the Forbes list, you own Cadillac, you own Lexus, you own Mercedes, why would you own a Mazda 626? He said, I don't own it, I lease it. I said, you what? He said, a car's a bad investment. The moment you buy it, it depreciates the value. He said, I only invest in assets. Like the oil baron J. Paul Getty, whose biography I've been reading this week, he said, if it appreciates the value, you buy it. If it depreciates, you rent it or lease it. I only invest in assets. You got to have a financial plan that makes money while you sleep. Have a plan that has your money working harder than you do. He put me in touch with somebody who helped me at a young age form a financial plan. I share that everywhere I speak. I'm going to share it with you here today because I find too many people struggling with money. I'm not saying this is the right financial plan for everybody, but if you don't have one, I would encourage you to create one. But I've been doing this for many years now, but these are all percentages of every dollar that I bring in. The first 50% of my income after taxes, that's a key term, goes to all my expenses. I pay my bills and I put it back into my business. I say after taxes because taxes are so important in this country. I was living in California. My advisor said, you got a global company, why the heck are you basing it out of the 4th worst tax state in the country? Only 3 states are going to steal more of your hard-earned money, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. He said, get the heck out of California and, change your company from a sole proprietorship to an S corporation. Anybody I know with any kind of money is incorporated, liability reduction, the asset protection, the write-offs. And he said, and change your corporate domain from Beverly Hills 90210, get the heck out of there and go to your hometown. That's a good place. Go to Scottsdale, Arizona, 85251. And at the end of the year, I'm actually looking to move myself to New Jersey, but my business to Texas because like Florida, where I spent most of 2017, there's no state income tax. It's not an accident. Tony Robbins, my former employer, left his castle in Del Mar, California and moved to Palm Beach, Florida. It's not an accident. My colleague Grant Cardone, who I did some work with, who has a $500 million worth of real estate holdings, left his $17 million home in the Hollywood Hills and moved his family and business out to Miami. Rich people are rich because they pay attention to all this kind of stuff. 10% of my income goes towards savings. I'm not talking about a savings account you open up your bank to get a free toaster. Sits in there getting a 0.0001% return. You might as well be shoving it in your mattress at that point. I'm talking about mutual funds and IRAs. I had advisors sit down with me at a young age and said if I had the discipline to put only $1,000 a month aside, and that's pre-tax dollars, and putting it into a mutual fund or an IRA and doing it for 20 years, that after 240 months, it wouldn't be worth 240 grand, it'd be worth 3-4 times that. That's the beauty of what's called compound interest. Poor people work for money while rich people have money working for them. Einstein called compound interest the greatest invention in human history. People call Einstein smart. 10% of my income goes towards investments, stocks, real estate. Robert Kiyosaki lives near me in Scottsdale, Arizona. He wrote a great book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Talks about the difference between how poor people and rich people think. Kiyosaki made his money investing in real estate. He wrote something in that book I share with realtors all over the world. He wrote, you should only learn how to sell real estate so you can buy real estate. Yeah, own it, invest in it. Less than 2% of realtors own investment properties. I find that fascinating. And we're in a day and age, man, where it becomes, it's becoming more and more important. I mean, largest hotel chain in the world doesn't own a single hotel. it's Airbnb. I mean, I worked with, most of the investors I work with, the top investors out there, they have right around zero interest in buying a home and flipping a home. That's not where their focus is. They want cash flow. They want cash flow. They want to rent out properties. They want the rent more than the profit. As my mentor pointed out, he said people invest in real estate and they put all this money into savings, but at the end of their life, there's too much money left, right? Or at the end of their money, rather, there's too much life left. He said, but if you have cash flow, you don't have to worry about that. You always have money coming in. My mentor lives down in Miami Beach. I visited him last summer on my way to a vacation in Havana. I stopped in. I said, hey, man, let's take a look at some of your real estate properties down here in South Florida. He said, well, they're probably not in any neighborhood you're going to want to go into. I said, what are you talking about? Don't you have any beautiful homes down here in South Florida? He said, no. He said, I don't really buy homes. I buy apartment complexes, small 8-unit things. He said, the only caveat there is it takes about a year of property management to get the wrong renters out, the right renters in. After that, it's pretty steady. He said, but the last house I bought, he said, I paid $31,000 for it. I said, why do you bother with that? He said, because I get $2,200 a month rent. I said, man, you're going to pay that thing off in a year and a half? He said, it was paid off before I bought it. He said, everyone's looking for diamonds. I see plywood, I get excited. A guy I worked with in Detroit, the young kid from the Middle East, came to America, moved to Detroit. He just buys out real estate and puts it on Airbnb. He showed me one home. This is his strategy. He bought one home in a low-income suburb called Hamtramck. It's an old Polish suburb that's mostly Muslim now. He converted that one house into 4 apartment units. He gets between $1,800 and $2,000 a month, and they're rented out 93% of the time. If you can get over $8,000 a month from rent in one home in a low-income suburb of Detroit, that's a pretty good strategy, right? And what I find is that real estate investing, completely different skill set. Completely different skill set. I don't teach real estate investing. Again, I'm not the jeweler, teaching about jewels. Got to go find somebody who teaches that stuff, but it's a completely different skill set. And I find that most realtors really don't know how to invest in real estate. Again, I'm not the guy to teach it. There's other guys out there who do it. But if you want to really acquire wealth in this lifetime, you have to have a financial plan that takes your active income and turns it into passive residual income. 10% of my income, I give it away. I tithe it. I give to charity. I give to the St. Jude Children's Hospital based out of Memphis. I give to the Make-A-Wish Foundation out of Phoenix. I give to the Wounded Warriors. I give to what's called the Pat Tillman Foundation after a guy I went to college with at Arizona State University. Nothing feels better than giving back something you love and are passionate about. How do we become wealthier? By giving 10% of earnings away. Variety of ways. Number one is feels great. If you're feeling good, you're probably going to be better in every other aspect of your life. It's a write-off when you're incorporated like I am. And I think the biggest advantage, though, it really changes your mindset from scarcity to abundance. You operate out of a place of there's more than enough. Scarcity thinkers are always focused on lack of inventory, high interest rates, bad economy. They're focused on all the negative stuff. Abundant thinkers are just focused on opportunity. I was working with the real estate office in Los Angeles, actually in the San Fernando Valley on the other side of the Hollywood Hills from LA. And we're standing at the top of his office building overlooking the valley. I said, your non-producers probably walk out to this window and all they see are all the other real estate companies in your parking lot. Man, there's Century 21, there's Keller Williams, there's Coldwell Banker, there's Prudential back then, now Berkshire Hathaway. There's too much competition. How the heck are we supposed to sell anything? Said your non-producers probably look out that same window and say, look at all the real estate. Look at all the opportunities. You focus on scarcity, you're going to produce scarcity. You focus on abundance, you probably produce abundantly. 10% of my income goes towards education. You don't make your money talking to your clients. You make your money right here getting trained, learning how to produce once you're in front of those clients. Stephen Covey, his little book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I think there's 2 copies of them on that table over there. Covey wrote in that book over there, you got to be focusing on your PC more than your P. P is production, PC is production capability. Your capability will determine your production. Your skill sets determine your income. I read one $20 book, made me $8,600. I went to a seminar years ago in New York City. I flew from Los Angeles to attend it. I can't tell you how many people, hey, where's your seminar coming to town? Oh, it's an hour away. Oh, is there going to be one in our area anytime soon? Yeah, dude, it's an hour away. Get up an hour earlier, man. Oh, the thought of that. Right? Stay the night before in a hotel. I'm not spending that money. Okay, well then keep doing what you're doing, man. I don't know what to tell you.